Everyone, and welcome to another episode of Sporting Directions, proudly sponsored by Tsunami Teamwear. For those of you new to the show, Sporting Directions is a podcast aimed at providing some ideas and guidance for those of you wanting to pursue a career in the world of sport. Over the course of this first series, we'll be interviewing a range of professionals from different areas of sport to share some of their amazing stories. We'll be having them share with us some of their achievements, some of their struggles, and any advice they may have for many of you wanting to also pursue a career in sport. Now, today, we're very happy to welcome Paul Summers. Paul is a very experienced international educator and leader, having been a director of sport and led some very successful PE and sports departments all over the world, including Qatar, Spain, Thailand, and the UK. Now, it's great to have you on the show, Paul. Welcome, and thank you for spending some time with us.
Morning, guys. No, thank you very much for having me on. Looking forward to it. Very warm in the UK now, so I might as well be abroad.
Okay, that's very different from what it normally is, all my memories of the UK. So, Paul, I need to start at a burning question I have for you, and that is, what made you leave the UK and begin this international journey into teaching and leadership?
It came a bit from left field, if I'm honest. I'd had 18 years in London, either training as a teacher or working as a teacher, and then came back to Newcastle, started a family, bought a house, etc. And I'd only been here 2 years, and then I got a message from an old university friend of mine just saying there was a head of PE job going at Bangkok Patna in Thailand, and I'd be great at it. Did I fancy it? And never even thought about it. So yeah, applied for the job. Then next thing I know, I was going down to London for an interview, and then a little while later, I was telling my wife did she fancy going to live in Thailand with a 1 and a 2-year-old? So yeah, it did come from left field. I was quite happy teaching in the UK, enjoying it, but I did always love traveling. I traveled to 80 countries actually. I had previously worked in Australia and the UK as a coach. Australia and America as a coach. So when this opportunity come up, I just thought, yeah, why not? Sort of thing. I can always come back to the UK one time, which I have now, but at that time it seemed like a great opportunity.
Paul, once again, thank you for coming onto the show. And it sounds like you've had this amazing adventure already. I think I heard you mention that you've already been to 80 countries throughout your sort of traveling history. I got to ask, what inspires you to travel? Is it the discovery of new culture, new places, or the people? What do you look forward to the most?
To be honest, all of that. I mean, it's one of these, I think a lot of people kind of are either city people or they're countryside people, whereas I'm quite happy in living in Bangkok, in a massive city, but I'm also quite happy in the middle of nowhere. So yeah, I mean, I think it first started, my passion for it first started when I went out to America football coaching. I used to go out there for my summer holidays. Obviously, being a teacher here, we got the good summer break. So I used to go out there, go to different states in America. And although it was one country, each state was different. And even within a state, you could be in New York and you could be in New York City, but then you could be up in Niagara Falls or on the Canadian border. And yeah, I kind of just got a real passion for it. I guess one of my biggest regrets in life is I'm not a linguist. I'd love to be able to speak languages, which would have helped us out kind of in some sticky situations in Central America and places like that. But yeah, definitely the culture, the people, being able to do it as well. You go to some places and people just haven't got a passport. They've never left their town, their village, never mind their country. So it's kind of inspiring hearing their stories and seeing them. I always try and go to local schools as well, where possible. A lot of the time they're closed, but it's good just to see their lack of facilities and kind of brings you back down to earth a little bit.
It sounds like you really appreciate finding different perspectives of the different people and the different cultures, and maybe that encourages you to opening up your own mind. And how everything is different must have caused maybe some barriers that you've probably faced. What is one of the strangest things that you've faced in one of your countries that have just gone, and how do you pick yourself up and sort of move on from a frustration sort of moment?
Is it from a work perspective or just kind of a traveling perspective?
Just a traveling perspective. Like one of those moments where you've just gone, this is unique to this sort of country. This is a frustration, a barrier. What was that sort of story, and how did you get over it, and what were you thinking?
Well, funny, I'm not sure if we got over it was more luck than judgment, but we were traveling between Venezuela and Colombia once, and there's kind of a 6-mile border of no man's land, and we got pulled out of the car at gunpoint. So there was 4 of us traveling, a couple of people were in one car, was in another. We got pulled out at gunpoint, couldn't speak a word of English, and they kind of pointing the gun in our chest and asking for passport. And I think sport could have saved our life, because when they look, to this day, I still don't know who these people were, whether they were border controllers, guerrillas, or whatever. But when he looked at the passport, he seen the word Newcastle. And now, I don't know how much you're into your football, but a very famous Colombian called Faustino Asprilla played for Newcastle, and he scored a hat-trick against Barcelona. So we couldn't speak any Spanish, they couldn't speak any English, so we just said Faustino Asprilla, and they just smiled from here to here, give us our passport back, and patted us on the back, and off we went. So I'm not sure if that's going to help any of the viewers, but that was certainly one barrier which you wouldn't expect to overcome in the UK.
No, that's a great anecdote to have. Sport saved our lives in a
Yeah, definitely. And I was lucky because I was actually born in Hexham, Northumberland, but my travelling colleague, also called Paul, was Newcastle. So I'm not sure they would have heard of any footballers from Hexham.
No, I mean, just moving on from what you've just said there, actually, I'd love to kind of delve into that a little bit more. People like myself, Tavis, and yourself, Paul, we get into this profession because we want to make a difference. We get into this profession mostly because we love sport. And it's great to hear how sport can transcend languages. It can transcend cultures. I'd love to know if you've kind of witnessed any more sort of commonalities, similarities in the attitude towards sport in some of the many countries you've taught.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think with sport, it's just a passion, isn't it? It doesn't matter what the sport is. I mean, you go to somewhere like Thailand, and obviously Muay Thai is very big out there, and they've got a sport called Sepak Takraw. I don't know if you've ever come across that. It's kind of, I suppose, the best way I can describe it, it's kind of like football, volleyball, like foot tennis, but it's with a woven ball. And it's just amazing when you watch them play this, and how talented those sportsmen and sportswomen are, and how passionate they are about a sport that nobody anywhere else in the world plays it. I mean, maybe some of the Southeast Asian countries like Malaysia, Vietnam might play it. But I think for me, the commonalities are always the passion and the joy that it brings as well. It's kind of bringing people together. So yeah, I suppose that would be the main commonality for me in all of them. Not from a teaching point of view or any of the countries where I've taught, but I remember being in Buenos Aires, and the passion for sport out there was just phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. You know, you'd be in one part of the city and they'd love polo, and you think, oh my God, like this is such an English sport. And obviously the rivalries between Argentina and England, and then the rugby was massive there, and you'd walk into a restaurant or a bar and they'd have kind of football, tennis, rugby, everything on, and it was a real passion for sport in Buenos Aires. And I don't know if that surprised me. I think I went there and expecting it to be a football mad city, but it was just a sport mad city, and it was a great place to be. I'd love to have had the opportunity to have worked out there, if I'm honest.
Yeah, it's very strange, isn't it? How we all have images of what a country is and what to expect from a country, and like, having never been there, the media obviously is to blame for a lot of that. And you know, coming to a country you've never been to before, or expecting one thing, and then finding that it's actually, you know, more familiar than you'd expect is quite a humbling thing, isn't it? It's quite a strange thing to witness. I want to jump on that a little bit more, actually. And what I'd love to hear from you is, we are all victims of our own circumstance, and we are all victims of our own attitudes, and we are victims of our own perceptions of places and barriers and accomplishments and so on and so forth. And when I was kind of beginning my international journey, I came across a number of mental barriers stopping me or put in my way to move into that international field. What I'd love to hear from you is any advice you might have for anyone out there who might be coming across these mental barriers, and any words of advice or encouragement you might have to say, look, push forward. It's not as scary as you think it is.
Yeah, I think it's definitely do your homework before you go. Make sure that country is for you. Make sure that school is for you. I think now, with the way the world is, the digital world we live in, it's very easy to find the names of teachers at that school. So, reach out to them, see if they're on Facebook, see if they're on LinkedIn, find out a little bit more about the school, about, not just about the school itself, but obviously it's life, it's about getting that work-life balance. What do they do with their free time? What do they do with their downtime? But I certainly don't think you should. I mean, when people think of Thailand, they may think of these beautiful beaches and things like that. But Bangkok, I think you either love it or hate Bangkok. It's a big, big city. It's obviously not too dissimilar to some of the big Chinese cities that you guys have come across. It's going. So kind of worked in a Buddhist country, worked in an Islamic country, worked in a very Christian country, Catholic country in Spain. And, at the end of the day, when you scratch the surface, people are the same. You just need to make sure you know what you're getting yourself into. Know that if you're going to Thailand, you're expected to stop wherever you are when the national anthem sounds. That might be 6 p.m. on a busy train platform, and the first time you come across it, everyone just stops and you think, what on earth's going on here? Obviously following the culture in Qatar, moving from Spain, which is very relaxed, people will have a glass of red wine with their breakfast sort of thing. People would wear kind of minimal clothes. To going from there to an Islamic country, it couldn't be further apart. So I think one thing it has done is, my children are only 9 and 10, but they don't see, like they'll be at school now with someone from Asia or someone from Africa. And then they just don't see anything. They just see a boy or a girl. It's funny, isn't it? They say things about how people aren't born racist. And, I think my 2 children would be the people that you could stand up to that because of where we've lived and how many different cultures and how many different races and religions they've come across. They're just like, people are people to them.
Yeah, I'd like to just jump in there because I've got a family as well. I've got a very young family. I've actually got a 4-year-old and a 9-year-old. And you're absolutely right. They don't see color, they don't see religion, they don't see race, and it's a big lesson many people need to learn. Tolerance is very key and very important if you're going to be traveling overseas, and I think respect more than tolerance is probably a better word, isn't it?
Respect, yeah, definitely.
What I'd love to hear from you, and to put forward to any of our listeners who themselves might have children and might be putting off traveling overseas or going into international teaching because they have children, what kind of words of advice would you have for them?
I think one thing you know that you're going to give up your friends and family network, but then you end up your friends and family network end up becoming your colleagues, sort of thing. For us, I'm sure it's the same with you. You get a lot of help out there, whether that's cleaners or whether that's maids. So that's a massive positive kind of moving to some countries, especially in Asia or Southeast Asia. And I think coming back to the UK, you realise how hard it is for people living and working and leading a normal life here, doing the dishes, doing the cooking, doing all your kids' washing and everything. So I think one barrier is don't be frightened to leave your friends and family behind, because you will get a lot of help out there. To me, though, the main thing is just, your children will come back, however long you've been there, okay, whether that's just a 2-year experience or whether that's a 15-year experience, they will come back more kind of, for want of a better word, global citizens. And I think it makes them more employable. At the end of the day, everyone wants the best for their children. So if your children can come back and they've experienced different cultures. They may have even picked up a different language. You know, I think I've got a couple of good friends who've been in China for well over a decade now, and they're staying there until their children are fully bilingual. You know, as soon as their children can speak Mandarin, we'll get them into university. And I just think in 5-10 years' time, I think if you've got a 22, 23-year-old who can speak English and Mandarin, they're going to be very employable to a lot of people around the world.
Hey, Paul, thanks for those great tips for young families thinking of moving overseas. And I really like the fact that you touched on becoming a global citizen or developing your cultural intelligence. You gave some examples of the national anthem being played in Thailand and the differences that you observed as you moved from Spain into an Islamic culture. If I could dive in a little bit deeper, how does one develop a professional relationship? How do you deal with different cultures within the workplace? And how do you develop those relationships so that everybody can grow?
I think it's really, really important that, especially when you have local staff, I think the local staff are key. I think if you're working in the UK, the main people in the schools are often the secretaries, the caretakers, your maintenance staff, your catering staff. When you go and work internationally, you'll find that the main body of the teaching staff will be international, but then the maintenance staff, your admin staff, your transport will generally be local. And I think working in sport and PE, it's so important that you have a good relationship with those, because those are the people that you rely on. I just think it's one of those things about, you know, we touched on it earlier about respect. You know, obviously living in Qatar during Ramadan, we have teachers who can't do duties, their normal duties, so you have to step in. We have teachers who can't teach their lessons, you know, because they may be tired. Obviously, you have a lot of children like that. It's very interesting, because I think being in the UK and moving abroad, you know, I wasn't young when I moved abroad. I was quite an experienced teacher, but even then, I probably didn't appreciate how difficult it was for some of our students to do PE and sport during Ramadan. And having worked in Qatar for 3 years, coming back to the UK now, when it's during Ramadan, I'll certainly have, you know, not more respect, but I'll certainly have more knowledge of what those children can and can't do. Because, you know, you think a lack of sleep is one thing, but a lack of food and water is just for them to even want to do PE or want to do sport is a huge credit to them. So I think it's just you have to take from it. You know, you have to learn about them and learn about what makes them tick, learn about the culture, learn bits of the language. You know, obviously, having worked in places like Thailand and Qatar, where the alphabet and the, you know, written communication is very different, I don't think I could ever learn that no long how long I stayed there. But you can certainly learn the pleases, the thank yous, the good mornings, you know, little things. I think that really goes a long way. So that will be one piece of advice that I'd definitely give to anyone, whether they're going away to be a teacher or work in sport. You know, try and get lessons in local language and local culture, find out a little bit more.
I really appreciated how you just went through a little checklist of things that you think are important when you move to a new country. Like you touched on being respectful to the local staff and developing those relationships of people that you rely on. How you can compromise and not always just to think about your own self when it comes to things like duties and you're understanding different people's positions. You're showing a lot of empathy.
So Paul, there's just one thing I want to really highlight and go back to that you mentioned, and this is something that's been very key to me during my teaching career. And that is that the people who actually control the school, you know, they're your senior leadership, your governors, your CEOs, but the people that really make a school run are your site staff, are your catering staff, are your cleaning staff. And I'd love for you to share with our listeners any sort of tricks or tips of the trade of how you really kind of keep them engaged, show them the respect they certainly and always deserve, and how you kind of have them assist and make your job easier in a way.
Yeah, I think it's just making sure, in the mornings, I'd walk through kind of the traffic. Obviously I've worked in some schools which are reasonably small, normal size, and I've worked in some very big schools where we had, I'm talking hundreds of ancillary staff, for want of a better word. Obviously you can't get to know them all, but you can certainly, say hello, have a wave. Some of them wouldn't speak a word of English. Obviously I didn't speak a word of their language, but I think a smile, a wave goes a long way. What I would certainly do would be things when it would be the big festivals would be either I would, or I'd say to the PE department, let's stick a few real in or a few baht in, let's buy some flowers, let's buy some chocolates. Whenever we had things, for example, if we had kind of PE technicians or we had ground staff, would make sure that would invite them out, we'd invite them out with us. I'm only talking kind of twice a year or something like that. As a PE team, we would kind of have quite a few socials, but we'd always make sure that we could invite these staff out to share some time with us. It would very often, be the case, like I always say about the year 7 disco, when you have the boys there and the girls there. It would often happen when you went out, they were quite shy and couldn't speak English. So often you'd go out in the first 10 minutes, you'd be there with each other, and then they'd end up going off with their friends and you'd be with yours. But I just think that they really appreciate the fact that you've taken the time to get them there with their friends and spend a bit of time with them. Emails go a long way. I'm booking, we're taking trips to China, for BISIAD trips. I'm not booking the flights. I'm not the one that's checking the visa entry requirements. I'm not the one taking the money in. So you just make sure that you follow up from that. And I know it's not just one person that has done that, but making sure that when you are in that country, you bring them back a little gift, a little gift from China, a little gift from Malaysia, wherever it is, just so that they know that you've kind of thought about the hard work that they've put in. Because, PE and sport, it's, especially when you're talking about fixtures, there is 101 people that have done that job to get them there. And going one further, I remember in Thailand, I don't know how aware you do the thing called the Y, where they do this, and very often our referees would be local referees. Our students were great, they would shake hands, say thank you to the opposition and stuff, but I started making sure that my captain always went and did the Y to the referee sort of thing. And I really think the referee massively appreciated it, more than kind of a handshake or just a thank you, because they just realize, let's face it, a lot of our students in international, they're very lucky, they come from affluent backgrounds, either their parents or their companies are paying for them to go to a school with great facilities. But these people who are refereeing our games or driving our buses, they can't be afforded those luxuries. So I think respect, making sure you say thank you, no matter how small it is, whether they've drove you to a fixture or refereed a game, is very important.
No, I love the idea of giving respect, but more importantly, I think what we're trying to really, both of us are trying to say, and I think a lot of people say the same thing, is just make the effort. Make the effort to say hello, to wave, to smile. One thing or bit of advice I was given a long time ago was walk the corridors. Don't sit on the computer. At break time, at lunchtime, walk the corridors. Make the effort. Go speak to your cleaners, your finance team, your admin team, the people that drive your buses, the people that pick, that clean up after you. All these people to make a school work. It's make an effort, walk the corridors, say hello. I love the idea you put forward of say hello, wave, smile, and the respect that you spoke about of the culture, making an effort to show the respect for the culture with the Y. Thank you for teaching me that. I didn't know it was called the Y. To localized referees, and they will appreciate it. My next question for you, really, Paul, is going to be kind of moving on to the future. We've talked a lot about your past. We've talked a lot about your present. I'd love to know about your future. So You've done an insane amount of countries. You've explored an insane amount of cultures. You've learned an insane amount. Your children have benefited greatly from this diverse learning of cultures, that global citizen status they can well and truly say they have. What I'd love to know is what's next for the Paul Summers family. What's next? What's the next direction? What's the next plan?
So one thing I would say is obviously working abroad. It is coming back into the UK. There's always going to be some kind of difficulties for getting a promotion or getting a like-minded job. I think a lot of people in the UK still don't know how fantastic a lot of these big international schools are, and the fact that their GCSE and A level results probably far outweigh some of the schools here. So there is still a little bit of a reluctance for that. So I feel I'm going to hit some of those barriers. I did fly back a few weeks ago for an interview. It was a senior leadership position. So I was lucky to get an interview there. Unfortunately, I didn't get the job. So when I came back, I really wanted to hit the ground running straight away, get into some supply teaching, get my face out in the school, so to speak, go in, do a good job, and then hopefully a role would come up. Unfortunately, with the DBS situation at the minute, obviously you have to have your police check. So mine hasn't come through yet. It's been in since May. You can check it and it's in process, but I haven't actually got the finished certificate yet, which you need to present when you go to any school. So one piece of advice I would give for anybody returning: you need your police certificate in your country, which I got in Qatar months and months ago, but start the DBS process early if you're going to come back to the UK. Obviously, if you've secured a job in a school, then that school will do it for you. But if you're like me and you're kind of coming back and not sure which direction you want to take 100%, at least get your DBS. What I've been doing, I have been a fellow teacher who taught for 20 years, started a company called Shape Performance. So what he does is he goes in and provides PE lessons to schools that may not necessarily have a PE teacher. So obviously primary and middle schools, which we still have in Northumberland, middle schools, don't often have a PE teacher. He'll go in and do that. He does the extracurricular things. He does teacher training. So I've been doing a lot of work for him, helping him out with his marketing. I've done some coach education things with him and run a sports day in a school, which I was all right to do without my DBS because I wasn't left alone with the kids sort of things. Obviously, there was other teachers there. For me now, it's about finding the right job. Now, I am more than happy because I love teaching to go into teaching, but this has kind of opened my eyes a little bit to think, oh, could I do sport PE, enjoy coaching and teaching young people without the negative things that come into teaching, you know, the paperwork, the pressure on exam results, things like that. So yeah, I'm at a little bit of a crossroads, to be honest. I've got my football coaching badges, so I've reached out to a couple of clubs. Kind of before I went away, I've worked at a couple of Premier League academies. I'm now looking at going on to the next level with my coaching, possibly doing my UEFA A license. So that would supply teaching would help me do that, because a lot of the time the A license is during term time. And obviously, while my head in London was very nice and let me out a lot for my UEFA B, I'm not sure if I'll get the same in a new school here with a UEFA A. So yeah, I'm just kind of looking at all options at the minute. I think the one thing about going away and working abroad is, whether you like it or not, it does improve your bank balance. So I've come back with a little bit of savings. So there's not massive pressure on me to find a full-time job to pay the mortgage and have stuff for the kids and things. So at the minute, I'm kind of dipping my toe in and out, being quite active, looking on LinkedIn, looking at schools here, contacting schools direct, find out who the head is, contact that school direct, ask if there's anything coming up. Don't wait for an advert to come up in the TAS. My last 3 jobs have not come through the TAS. My last 3 jobs have kind of come through LinkedIn and putting yourself out there and seeing a job advertised, but then finding out who the head is, seeing if they're on LinkedIn, send them a message beforehand, ask if you can have a chat, ask exactly what they're looking for. Is there anything not in the advert that they're looking for? Yeah, so a little bit of a crossroads, but quite exciting times. I am on a couple of teaching supply agencies who kind of all but guaranteed me work in September because the supply teaching has gone crazy out here. They can't get enough. Yeah, using my connections to just try and get something sorted for September, but I am working over the summer. I'm doing the summer camps for my friend with his shape performance, so that's going to be good. I'll get into the schools. Won't see any teachers because I don't think they'll be there in the summer holidays, but I'll certainly get a feel for the kids in the facilities of different schools around Tyne and Wear, County Durham and Northumberland. So yeah, what's next? The honest answer is I don't know what's next, but it's quite exciting.
Well, it definitely sounds like you're being very active in going through your networking, you're helping out friends, and you're feeling rather happy without the financial pressures of getting a job straight away. What I'd like to know, though, is after being away for so long, have you experienced any sort of reverse culture shock as you've sort of reintegrated back into the UK?
The cost of petrol is a big one. It used to cost me £20 to fill up my car in Qatar. Costs me £120 here. No, I think one of the reasons why we've come back, if I'm honest, is because obviously the last couple of years for everyone, I don't need to tell you guys in China, but for expats, it's been very difficult. We love the expat life, but we love the opportunity to go and travel and have holidays, and our friends and family come and see us. And, you have got a little bit of expendable income, so you can fly back to the UK for Christmas. You can for Easter if you want. You can for the summer. So I've always come home quite a lot, or I've always seen my friends or family. And I think the last 2 years with COVID, with not being able to come back and see friends and family and them not traveling to us, it's kind of made us realize, how much we missed home. So we've come back. The hardest thing is always the worry for your own children. How are they going to settle in? My little girl is 10. She was in a class that only had her and 2 other girls in Qatar, and she's come back and now she's in a class with 20 girls. So we went from class sizes of 12 or 13 to class sizes of 30. But I mean, the teachers in the UK are second to none. The work they do, how hard they work, the teaching assistants. Would the kids settle? But they certainly have. And I think, they're quite unique as well, aren't they? The kids want to know where they've been and what they've done. So it's like, wow, you've been, the World Cup's there. You've been there. My cousins are going there on holiday, or they do this. Do you know any words? What currency do they use there and things like that? So it is kind of a conversation starter. It's probably harder for teachers to move schools than kids sometimes, I think. I don't know. I know there's a lot of buzzwords at the minute, but kids are very resilient. They really are. And, they come and they make friends and they just flick from one culture to the other and they fit in. But I suppose with me not working yet, I think I might still be going through the honeymoon period. So I'm getting to see lots of my friends. I'm getting to do lots of things. So it's kind of like an extended holiday at the minute. I know that people have been having a lot more empathy with people with families and letting them work from home and things like that. So that's one big culture change, which I knew had happened abroad, not so much in teaching, because obviously you have to be there face to face with the children. But I just think general office work and sales work, a lot of people, like, for example, my sister only has to do 2 days in the office a week. My wife's currently working kind of hybrid. She's going across to the northwest to work and she's working from home. So I think people are just a little bit more open to the way in which we can work.
Yeah, COVID has certainly changed the world for the worse, but in many ways for the better as well.
Yeah.
I think we'll all agree on that
definitely.
one. I love that comment about the kids being resilient. Yeah, I'll agree. Kids are phenomenally resilient, and I think a lot of adults could take a lot of lessons from
definitely
children and from the young kids, because they seem to adapt and be open to new things far more than this older people. And
I think they very much adapt. To me, one of the issues I have is they are very resilient, they are very adaptable, but it's kind of having that conversation, like, is there more going on in their head that they're not telling you about? Because obviously sometimes you've got a 4-year-old, I think, and a 9-year-old, and they're not really going to converse that, like, they don't understand what's happening. So that's kind of the only worry on they seem very resilient, they seem very happy, they seem to make friends, but kind of what's going on in that little brain of theirs, thinking, hold on a second, what's happening here? So yeah, it's interesting.
No, it is a very, very difficult one. I'm very lucky. I've got my wife, sorry, is an EYFS expert. So she helps me out with getting to understand the psychology of that. And I'm still learning every day and picking up on the small cues. But you're right. What's going on in that mind? I don't think we'll ever fully know, but they are incredibly resilient. And I love the fact that you picked out on the fact that when they go to a school back in the UK, back in a small village, for example, everyone wants to know where they've been, what they've done, can they speak the language, what have they understood, what they've learned, and they've picked up far more than they'd ever get into a school. They've picked up cultural awareness, and they've picked up lessons far beyond the classroom. And as you said earlier on in our conversation, there are some people, families, children out there who are born, grow up, live, go back to work, and die sometimes all in the same postcode. And to give our children the opportunity to not just see the country, but see the world, experience the world, learn new languages, taste new food. I think my children had a scorpion on a stick not so long ago. It was a strange experience, but to say that they've done that is a phenomenal accolade. Right, we're just gonna wrap it up, Paul, because we could sit here and talk for hours, but we do need to wrap it up. So what we tend to do at the end of our conversations is talk about your personality, or try and draw out bits of your personality, try and share with our audience what sort of a person you really are by throwing you some fun little questions. And my question is about what if, and that is what if you weren't a teacher? What if you weren't in international education? What else do you think you might have found yourself doing?
I think I would have been in the forces, definitely. Come from a family, my dad was a soldier. Actually got shot twice before I was born. So my dad was a soldier, my brother was Royal Marines. I would have went in the forces, but unfortunately, I've put my glasses on now. So I've never had sight in my left eye. I've I was born with kind of a lazy eye, so I only kind of see out my right eye. I went shooting once with my brother and my dad when I was young. And basically the rifle that they used, the English Army rifle, was called an SE-80, and it was right-handed because of where the safety catch was. So I'd never ever picked up a rifle before. We were on this range, and I just went the targets come back. My brother was like a grades 1 marksman in the Marines, and I beat him. First time I ever picked up a rifle, I beat him. And this shows you about the body. So the sight of my left eye, terrible, can't see anything, but the sight of my right eye, it's kind of like taken over. So it's as if I had kind of a superpower in my right eye. And I've heard it before about people who are kind of deaf have a phenomenal sense of smell, or who can't see, their hearing's unbelievable. So so I think I would have loved to have gone in the forces, but I'm not sure I would have gotten in, because they might have tested both eyes individually, and if that was the case, my dream would have been shattered. But I do value what they do and what they go through, having come from a family that have had people in it. Obviously, don't condone war, and hopefully there would never be any reason for people to have an army. But if I wasn't to be a teacher, I think that's what I would have liked to have done.
Paul, what a great story. And thank you for sharing it. And I'm sure that story must come up around the dinner table with your brothers and with your family fairly often. Hope you still give it to him a little bit. My interesting question, my fun question is, what is a weird habit or skill that you have that has helped you on your journey?
I don't know. I don't know if I can say this. So I'm a coffeeaholic. I have to drink coffee. So I always drink coffee, but because I always drink coffee, I'm always making it. So I think a few of my kind of departments, especially when I've had a big department, of getting a shock when I'm like, right, who wants a coffee? And it's a nice thing to do, to be able to make a coffee for your colleagues or to go and buy one. So I think drinking coffee has helped us. So what was it? Habits, and what was the other one?
A strange skill. So what is a weird habit or strange skill that has helped you on the way?
Well, the thing is, I haven't really, I wish I could play instruments or speak languages. One thing I've always tried to do wherever I've gone, I've always tried to kind of learn a few words in that country, or to learn like numbers. So I always, one thing, when I teach my children, like whether it's GCSE, A-level or IB, I always tell them that I can teach them how to count in Japanese without kind of saying the words. So I don't know if you've ever done this, but like, you can't really see this, but I would do this, like scratch, and they'd be like, say, what's this? And scratch, they'd be no, and then they'd be itch, and they'd say, yeah, then I'd stand up and point to my like knee, and they'd be knee. So anyways, you go through it and it's kind of hitchy, knee, sanchi, go. So I'd always try and do that. And that's something that stuck with me from teacher training when I was 18. So I went to St. Mary's College in London, and we had to do teaching studies. We did a bit of religion, and my degree was actually history and PE. But my teacher walked in, I'll never forget him, a guy called Terry Selwyn. And for a whole hour, he spoke to us in Japanese. And we were just there looking at each other going, what on earth is going on here? But I remembered it. And I've used that with my students 20 years later. So yeah, that was one thing.
I think it's great that you just shared a story about another way of breaking down barriers and finding different ways of communicating. And it sounds like you've been able to use that all throughout your international teaching career. You've shared stories of respect and compromise and being empathetic, and the value that you have on these attitudes and passing these down onto your own children, and how they are now reaping the rewards of your international career. So
hopefully,
hopefully time will tell. But thank you once again for coming onto the show. It's been a pleasure, and I hope that
thank you guys. Yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's been a fantastic conversation, and I'm definitely going to be kind of taking away a few key nuggets from this conversation. Things like make an effort, give the respect, take the time to understand different cultures, and listen to your kids. Learn lessons from your kids and their resilience. I love that. I really do love that. So, Paul, thank you ever so much for all your time. We do appreciate it, and all the best with your transition back to the UK.
Say again, sorry?
Sorry, I said all the best with your transition back to the UK.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much. Time will tell. Time will tell.
Okay, bye-bye.